This is the Singer Shoe Patcher, a popular old machine. It's the 29K72 by Singer. I'll show you how to load a bobbin and thread the machine, and I'll show you some features of the machine that you may not have seen discussed before. Alright, so this is a Singer 29K72. There are a series of 3 of these machines. Well, there's actually a lot more, but there's a 71, a 72, and a 73. And they all have the same manual. Okay, so that's what I mean by there's 3 of the same. There's actually like, I don't know, there's like 70 shoe patchers. I don't know. There's a lot, and they all have little differences. So as far as the 71, 72, and 73, the 71 is a little shorter, a little over 12 inches from here to the needle. The 71 has a smaller end here. So they measure the width and the thickness. And so the 71 is smaller on the end here, and so is the 73. This 72 is a little over 17 inches from here to the needle, and the 73 is the same length as this one. The difference between this one, the 73, has this length of arm and the smaller business end. This machine has a big hand wheel on the end. Now the 71, 72, and 73s, they all had an option to put the hand wheel on the front here, and this window is where that option would be installed. You'll see a lot of machines where they move the hand wheel from here and they put it on the front of the machine. That was an option when they sold these new. It's just a little handier to operate from the front. Now I've put this machine on a servo motor, and so nothing's really handier than that. Right here on this end is where the bobbin and hook are. This swings around, and so you've actually got 2 different size needle holes, so one's bigger than the other. So if you want to use a bigger needle and bigger thread, you can go to a larger hole. The option is just chosen by switching ends on this plate. Here's where you access the bobbin. Probably the neatest thing about this machine is how it can sew in any direction without turning your work. And so you can change the direction that the machine feeds the work by moving these, we'll say, ears. And it changes the direction of the foot. And it's actually the foot that pulls the material through. So depending on which direction you aim the foot, that's the direction it's going to pull the work through. And that's important when you got a boot on here and you can't really turn your boot. So you need to be able to turn the machine. These are also very popular for putting on patches on leather jackets and whatnot. So if you got Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts in your life, bikers, this is a good machine to put patches on their sleeves. So you just run the whole sleeve up here, and then you can sew each direction on the 4 sides or however many sides your patch has. I'm going to show you how to wind a bobbin. Disengage the hand wheel, and that way you can turn the hand wheel without engaging the rest of the machine. Put the thread through the bobbin. Now on here is a small pin, so that's going to line up with that slot. And that's going to lock that bobbin in so that the wheel and the bobbin turn as one. Now there is a thumb screw. We'll make sure that's loose so that we can move the bobbin winder tire up into the hand wheel. Now it's just a matter of winding this on by hand, and you will need to somewhat guide it with a finger. They didn't have a guide in these old machines, and the manual shows doing it just like this. Till you get it full, and that's probably just a little bit too full, but I want to disengage this while I'm thinking about it. Trim that, and there. Alright, now we'll load this into the case. Be sure and re-engage the hand wheel. And there it clicks in, so now it's set and ready to go. Man, that thing is loose. That's better. Alright, so this is the case. And it's a little different than a lot of machines in that it has this hook as part of it. Anyway, you take the bobbin and you hold it to where the thread comes across the top from left to right. And then just drop it in that orientation. Then you take the thread and move it into the slot. And it's going to go underneath this spring right here. So you just kind of pull it up towards the top and just sneak it in there, and then there's a groove it kind of lands in. And right there you can see a hole. We're going to fish it up through that hole. So I like to use a needle threader. Poke it down through the hole. You don't have to have that, but it makes it easier. And then we're going to go across, and there's another guide right in the center here. And now we're ready to put it in the machine. All right, so we've got the bobbin loaded. Let's talk about threading the machine. So you'll come from the thread pin, and you'll come to the oil cup here. Around this pin and through the tension discs. Through the eye, and then through the take-up lever from front to back. Since I don't have the threading rod that goes with this machine, I'm going to use this, which this is a threading wire that I have just acquired. You know, I don't know how I got it. It just came with a machine, so I don't know if you can get one of these or not, but you'll probably want to get you one of those rods that I don't have. I'll put a link down in the description. So when these needles are installed into the machine, the groove should be on the left and the scarf will be on the right. Thread it from left to right. So that's how you thread this machine, but there is an alternate way of threading, and in the book it talks about threading for darning, and when you do that you'll use this. I'm not exactly sure why you would use a different tensioner for darning. So if you know, would you let me know down in the comments? On the back of the machine there is the foot lift. Right here, as you tighten this down, it will increase the foot pressure. So how much pressure the foot puts on the work. When you loosen the screw, it reduces the pressure on the foot. This is the tension adjustment. So this is the foot of the machine and the needle. This gauge is where you can set the stitch length. On this collar you can see an arrow right here, and that's indicating that the top edge of this collar is where you will set on the gauge to determine the length of the stitch. So it goes from 5 to 15 on this machine. So that's 5 stitches per inch, or 15 stitches per inch, or somewhere in between. So the top edge of this collar is on the 5, so it's set up to sew the longest stitch that it can sew. If you loosen this screw, then you can slide this collar up and set it anywhere you want. So the higher you go, the shorter the stitch will be. So if I set it up here at 8, that'd be 8 stitches per inch. Back at 5 is where I'm going to sew with it, and then I just tighten the screw there. This is an adjustment for the foot step height. So with that set on high, the foot step is high. The foot will pick up the maximum amount, and that's good for stepping over seams, or if you've got an extra thick area of your project, that's going to help step over that. With it set to a lower amount, the foot doesn't step up as high. And here it is on its lowest. And on its lowest setting, it barely steps up at all. In order for the take-up lever to draw up the thread far enough so that there is not a loop that will get stabbed by the needle, you'll need to get this set. So what's happening here is the string is not being pulled tight as the needle comes down, and you're left with this loop, and that creates all sorts of bad things, like missed stitches and broken threads. Now the manual indicates that this nut here is set at the factory so that these adjustments will accommodate your different sizes of thread or whatnot. When I get a machine this old, this nut has undoubtedly been adjusted, and so I couldn't make enough of an adjustment to make the stitch proper. So I had to adjust this screw to the location that you see it now, and now it will produce a good stitch. As far as a procedure or an operation, for me it was basically trial and error. So I did finally get that to where now this adjustment can be made and get good results. So once I got this set, then I can fine-tune the tension on this spring. So while I can't tell you exactly the procedure to go through on this, it's somewhat intuitive, somewhat trial and error, but it is a dance between this adjustment and this adjustment in order to get this take-up lever to pull that thread up until the needle is into the work. So by moving these bolts up and down this thread in unison, you can move this tension release plate. This plate right here is the plate that is adjusted with the 2 nuts that I just showed you. And so as you adjust those nuts up or down, it affects the height of this plate, which goes around the collar, which applies tension to these springs. You can see now that there's no tension on these springs because I have the foot lifted, and if I let the foot down, it drops that plate and lets the spring of the tensioner put tension back on these discs. So now whenever you lift the foot, you release the tension so that your work can remove easily. Like that. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I hope you found some value in this video. I appreciate all the support you give me by the thumbs up for videos that you like, subscribing to my channel, and even providing patronage on Patreon.